boogity, 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 get up on your feet.
Well, hello everyone, and man, it's a big day here in Franklin, Tennessee. We just did an event with Feed the Children, and I'm so excited to be a spokesperson for Feed the Children. They're going to sponsor the nationwide race up in Kentucky next week, and they wanted to do a food distribution event here in Franklin this morning, and we've had over 400 families come out and got some great food, personal needs, some cosmetics, just a lot of really useful stuff, and it makes my heart feel so good. It's so gratifying to be able to give back to the community that I love and that I've grown up in. It's been so good to me. Feed the Children is a great organization. They may if you go to the website, they may be coming to your town soon. They go where they're needed, where there's disasters or just communities that have huge needs, and they come and hand out food. And so I'm glad to be on the team, and maybe you'd like to join, and if you do, well, like I said, go to the Feed the Children website and get all the information. And welcome to the long and winding road edition of the DW Show. Yes, we're back from wine country. As my friend Larry McReynolds liked to say, a week in wine country leads to 2 weeks at Betty Ford. Just kidding. That's what Larry says, you know, and we all know what Larry, we all know Larry. But I thought for a road course race, we saw really not just one great race on Sunday, the Cup race, but that race they had up at Road America on Saturday in the nationwide race, that was pretty entertaining too. So for the first time, and don't get all excited, oh, we had a great road race, ought to be one in the Chase, ought to be one here, and we ought to have more, and we ought to have 8 or 10 or 15 of them. No, come on folks, calm down. One race does not make for a great road race. It just happened to be a great race Sunday. Enjoy it, I did. Even though Kurt Busch led 75 of 110 laps. That car and that driver were flawless. And you don't see that on a road course very often. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. Think about it. Juan Montoya, he had a terrible day. He kind of drove over, around, and through quite a few people. Brad Keselowski, Bad Brad, was actually Juan Montoya made him bad. He was after him so aggressively. And Casey Kane, he didn't have any kind words for Juan either. So, and of course, the big blow up was Tony Stewart and Brian Vickers. You know, Tony Stewart says, if you block me, I'll wreck you. And Brian Vickers said, if you wreck me, I'll wreck you back. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. At the end of the whole thing, they're standing there interviewing each other. They both seem to be okay with it. And I think an underlying message, I think if you listen to Tony's interview, Tony said, as long as there are no rules against it, that's what we're going to do. And I think that's probably one of those areas, everybody likes boys have at it. Yeah, well, it's liven things up, and the drivers are getting to police themselves, and the drivers can do this. And I'm all in. I'm all in. I'm with you on that. But I still say there needs to be some limitations. Not looking over your shoulder, points, fines, and all that kind of stuff every week. But some limitations to keep this thing from getting totally out of control. Now, one of the things that adds to the boys have at it dilemma is the tracks. If you think about where we have issues, it's on tight racetracks where you race really close together the whole race. Just think back to Richmond with Newman and Juan Pablo. Hard to pass. The only way you can pass somebody Richmond is maybe nudge them a little bit, move them out of the way a little bit, or not give them any room and get them in the fence or whatever. Richmond's hard to race on, tight, hard to pass. Fast forward to Darlington, same way. Darlington is kind of a one groove. If you're going to pass somebody, almost got to move them out of your way and give them a little bump or push them up a little bit or whatever. Tight racing. And then you go to the road course, well, there's no question, that's going to be a lot of bumping and grinding. And here's why. Road racing is different than oval track racing in the fact that if you get in the gas and get out, the guy behind you gets in the gas, he doesn't get out. He runs into you. You come into a turn. You don't know, just like we saw with Vickers and Tony. Coming down that turn 11, I mean, you can go all over the place. You can take a late entry into the corner. You can take a tight entry into the corner. If there are cars in front of you, you're going to try to drop down and take the inside. I'm not sure that Vickers necessarily was blocking Tony. I think Vickers got in Tony's way, and Tony rammed into him, spun him out. By the way, took out Dale Jr. in the process as well. So I'm not, but it's just that kind of racing. And that's where you have to be willing to give and take. You got to say to yourself, look, I'm going to get bumped into, I'm going to bump into a few people. Hopefully I don't get anybody too mad at me. But with boys have at it, you don't get a lot of a give and take. It's more like, if you hit me, I'm going to wreck you. So that's what we've seen. But I do want to say Kurt Busch had an awesome car. That's probably as good a race car compared to the rest of the field that I've seen this year, the dominance. And just think of what that team has done over the last few weeks. Think back to Richmond and Kurt just in an unbelievable tirade on his radio. Just cussing everything and everybody that had anything to do with that race car. But he was a frustrated driver because he knew, like most of us drivers know, there's a lot more there. There's more potential. We're better than this. And that's what was frustrating Kurt. And maybe he didn't go about it right, but he sure has gotten the results. I mean, 3 poles. You know, he had probably the best car at Pocono, finished second. Now he's got a win. And Keselowski's got a win. Penske's got like 4 poles out of the last 5. That's just like you flipped a switch. And that's how fine a line these teams ride on. You flip a switch, you fall off. You flip a switch, you get back on. And so that's one of the things these teams deal with all the time. You got to get it right. If you get it right, then you're going to go to victory circle. So, more of the same, kind of. Where are we going? Daytona. What are we going to do? Pack race. When you pack race, what happens? Somebody turns into a rat. And there will be some rats in the pack. And they'll run into somebody and they'll cause a wreck. And one wreck causes another wreck. That's just what happens at Daytona. When you run that close together, and here's the thing that we're all going to be watching, I know I am, is that 2-car breakaway going to work in July? In February, we had absolute max grip. We had the most grip you're going to have in that track. We had the right tires and everything set up for the scenario we saw. Talladega, pretty similar situation. But when we go back to Daytona, the track's 6 months older, hot sunshine. The races at night, that's going to help. But I'm not sure that the grip level is going to be there that was there in February. If that's the case, here's the deal. You won't be able to stand somebody pushing you all the way around the racetrack. Daytona traditionally, typically, when you get to the corner, you got to get off a guy because he can't stand that 210-mile-an-hour corner entry with somebody pushing on him. So that's what I'm going to be watching in the race. Can these guys handle somebody pushing them that fast into a track that's going to be a little hot, a little hotter than February, a little slicker than February? We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that and see if that pushing all the way around the racetrack is going to work again in February. So, a lot of good stuff to watch. The season this has been the best season ever. More winners. I think a couple of first-time winners, and we're going back to where Trevor Bayne turned the racing world on its ear. You know, in February, he's going to be in the 21 car again. Can he match that magic he had in February? Is it going to be a Chevrolet? Is it going to be a Dodge? Is it going to be a Toyota? Is it going to be a Ford? Is it going to be one of the guys we expect? Or are we going to get a surprise winner? There's some guys out there that are on the verge of winning their first race. Marcos Ambrose, Menard, Allmendinger. There's a number of guys that are all sitting there right on the cusp of getting their first win. And they could come at Daytona because it's usually wild, crazy, and unpredictable. Hey, that sounds like the DW show.